Hi, my name is Abby Leese, and I'm the pastor of Zion Lutheran Church in Etters.
And I'm Ben Leese. I'm the pastor of Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in York Springs.
And we're here today to talk about the question, will Hitler go to heaven?
And the short answer is, of course,
we don't know.
But the complication, of course, is on one hand, we believe and trust in God's grace, and on the other hand, we know all too well about the evil that lived inside of Hitler, and that by the way he lived his life, he rejected that grace.
So, I err on the side of God's grace. I assume that Hitler will go to heaven because I think that God's love is bigger than anything that Hitler can do, even bigger than Hitler rejecting God's love. Once we start talking about anything, any kind of action that we do, even if it's the act of not accepting God's love, then we're on a sliding scale, because how much do we have to accept? Do I have to accept God's love every day? Can I do it every other day? Can I accept God's love at the end of my life? What counts?
And how do we know when we've done what counts?
Right. And so I like to avoid that whole slippery slope, and I like to assume that all people will go to heaven because of God's love. And I'm in fact counting on that, because otherwise I'm quite concerned about my own salvation.
Right, and I think that's the interesting part about this question about Hitler, is that normally people who are asking it aren't really concerned about Hitler. They're concerned about themselves. And so they're either asking that question in a way to justify themselves, because the reasoning goes, well, I'm not as bad as Hitler, and if God sends Hitler to hell, well, I'm not as bad as Hitler, so I don't deserve that, so I need to be going to heaven. Or the other flip side, if we follow Abby's trajectory, is, well, if even Hitler goes to heaven, then I'm okay too, because I'm not that bad. So it's kind of one of these self-justification questions. The other part of the problem is when people are asking that question, is I think because they're wrestling with the fact that they know that the evil that lives inside of Hitler lives inside of them too.
Absolutely.
And it's uncomfortable to come to that recognition that we have that kind of evil inside of us.
Absolutely.
But I think that's the reality. I think that's part of why people ask that question, is because they're aware of their own evil, their own rebellion against God, and that it's on the same par as Hitler's.
Absolutely. And we have been fortunate enough to not grow up in a circumstance in which that evil was fostered to the degree that Hitler's was. But how might have that evolved in us in a different circumstance?
Right, exactly.
So there you have it. That's the non-answer version of that answer.
Right.
You can check us out at www.lutheransonline.com/Zion-Etters.
And my website is yorkspringshttlc.com. And we're also both on Facebook.